Hey everyone.
Hey, that's funny.
Thanks for coming along to Quality Advocates. Seeing quite a few familiar names pop up, which is great. Chris has got a really interesting talk to give with us today, and Chris, thank you for getting involved. It should be really good insights into dealing with working relationships. So, but I'll hand it over to you, Chris. Best of luck, and yeah, hope everyone enjoys.
Cheers, Bernie. If you can't hear me at any point, I suggest shouting or something. Otherwise, I'll just sort of carry on. So thank you for coming to my talk. This is What's Love Got to Do with It, a communication heuristic. And to start us off, I just thought I'd go over what a heuristic is, just in case it's something that you haven't heard of before. So a heuristic, as it says on the screen, is a method of learning or solving problems that allows people to discover things themselves and learn from their own experiences. So as a heuristic, is it good? It is good to test, to ask the question, what might I do in this situation? And what that really means is we're not looking here at a linear way of doing stuff, something that's really, you should definitely do this thing. It's kind of, there's a lot of things to consider, and we should use them to try and solve our problems. So, we've got three areas that we're going to cover. I'm going to introduce myself and the topic. We're going to talk about the main part, and then I've got a little bit of interactivity for you. So to start off with, this is a little bit about me. I like a few different things. I've got a family. Isn't that very nice? But the context here is really important when we're talking about communication. So there is a lot about me that I do. I volunteer at conferences. I've spoken at conferences. I started a podcast that went live today. The Testing Peers. I encourage you to check it out. I've been involved in some Ministry of Testing meetups and also the Eurostar conferences where I led the volunteer team this year. But actually, more importantly for today, the background. I have a family. There's some lovely people. One of them might not be in my family, but I'll leave that to you. So, what brings me to this background, to this topic? A while ago, I got one of those background memory sort of jolts on Facebook. And it said to me, hey, do you remember that time when you were struggling understanding this book? And I thought, that's interesting. I wonder if that could apply to software testing. And I look back at what my life was like. This is like 13 years ago I was looking at this book. I'll tell you what the book is shortly if you hadn't guessed already. So I was dating my now wife, and we were looking to get married, and it was suggested to us that we went to a pre-marriage course. And one of the things that happens when you are dating somebody is that you're on a high, you see only the best things in each other. You don't necessarily consider all the things that might happen in your life. And so we were sent off to this course, ran for like 4 or 5 weeks, and it helped us sort of to address things that we hadn't ever considered before. I didn't know what I was doing with my life, but I knew I wanted to be with my wife. So that's kind of a really brief introduction to me. But here's in the context of today's talk. I'm not you, and I'm not an expert. So what I'm talking about now is what it applies to me, but I'm hoping some of it can actually inspire you. I am enthusiastic about quality, whatever that might mean to you. I'm excited to share my experiences. I am keen to learn more, so and have more conversations about this area. And I'm pretty terrified talking in front of a camera, in front of lots of people. So, to introduce you into this is a communication heuristic. I think we all know what communication is, which is good. But am I talking about tools? We're talking about online or interpersonal, which right now for all of us is basically online. Yes. So the star of today's show is the 5 love languages. This is the book, and it is written as a relationships-based book by Gary Chapman. If you follow him on Twitter, he just retweets things. But by all means, I encourage you to have a look at the book if you can. The idea of the 5 love languages is that everybody speaks a different language. There may well be people on this call that actually don't speak English as a first language. And the point here is you may well have been raised by 2 people, say your mum and your dad, or whatever. Chances are they will have a primary language of their own. Another one might have a different language. And when I'm talking about that, I'm not talking about spoken language. We're talking about love languages. And I'm going to go into depth a little bit as to what they are and how they apply to us as testers, because let's not forget, this isn't me being your relationship guru. We are testers, and we are talking about how we interact as testers. So there are 5 languages that Gary breaks this down into. There's words of affirmation, quality time, receiving gifts, acts of service, and the one that normally gets people laughing, but of course in this current day and age is a little bit impossible. Well, that's physical touch. So we'll start with words of affirmation. Words are very powerful things. And to consider how we interact in our daily way of working is quite important, because as testers, a really important thing for us to do is to convey either our confidence in the work that we're doing, confidence in the product. If we found a defect, how have we found it? What are we going along to those things? If there's a risk, how are we articulating that to people? If someone's doing a good job, how does that make them feel? So we've got a lovely quote here, because who doesn't love a quote? Mark Twain talking about how he can live for 2 months on a good compliment. If somebody gives an encouraging word to you, do you think that's a positive or a negative thing? I'm asking lots of rhetorical questions, please forgive me. I normally do this in front of people who sort of nod knowingly. But showing an understanding of a situation, positive reinforcement for understanding how people are working. If someone's run a meeting and you've actually got a lot out of it, you thought it was well run, if a bug's been written well, or if code's been written well, why wouldn't we say encouraging words about those things to people? There's an example in the book that Gary gives about people being under pressure to get a job done. And every day it's, have you done that job? Have you done that job? And actually the motivation of the person that's getting nagged at to get the job done, if their love language is along these lines, it actually works out that they're being discouraged from doing what they're getting nagged to do all the time, because they don't feel appreciated for the job they're doing. You might well be an awesome tester, but if someone has got a little task that you either don't have as a priority, or it's something that you've kind of been putting off because you've got other things that are important to you to do, you might well be putting that thing off. And it might be something like reviewing a document. It might be, say, organizing a demo for some work that you've sort of agreed to do in the background. But if you aren't getting that recognition for your bread and butter, the stuff that you think you're doing good, sometimes your motivation, it's not there. Actually, compliments can change motivation, and it can energize people. And sometimes that is missed when we are engaging with people. Kind words is an important thing to talk about when we're talking about words of affirmation. I don't know about your workplace, but in workplaces I've had before, there's a lot of what people call banter. And sometimes when we talk about banter, there's a lot of sort of being a little bit jokey, but a little bit mean, maybe passive aggressive or sarcastic. Maybe the tone you have when you're talking with people can be enough that it actually isn't a kind thing and actually can demotivate people. Just like my children, which I hope you can't hear too loudly. Maybe not. But kind words can actually diffuse a situation. If there's any sort of aggravation, I don't know if you've worked in a place where everybody gets on really well all the time, but there can be conflict. And when you actually have kind words with each other, if you are humble, which is the next line, it can diffuse a situation. If you can show empathy and you can seek understanding and reconciliation, which I think as testers is really important for us. We are driven by quality. We're driven by good things. And so actually think about how those words might be felt if they were said to you. Like, I've had conversations with people where I really need to confront them about what they are doing or how it is making members of my team feel. If I come in and go, what you're doing is outrageous, it's making everyone feel so bad, do you think immediately they're now going to just go, oh yes, fine, please list off everything that I've been doing wrong. I'm not going to feel defensive about this at all. Realistically, we need to think about how we talk. So humble words, this is coming across, meeting people where they are, but also showing respect. There is so much that I do not know, even about communication, which I'm doing a talk on with you now. But you've got to realize that everybody wants to be met at their level. They want to have respect. How would you want to be treated if somebody comes along and just starts telling you how wonderful they are, or how they would do stuff all the time? So the next section is quality time. Has anyone ever had this situation where you're either in a meeting, say with your managing director, and you're trying to show them off your latest proof of concept for maybe an automation rig or something, and they're just whacking away on their laptop, or even just a team meeting and people have just got their phone out. Maybe they've got important work to do, but do you really think that sort of level of attention that you're being given is respectful? Does it make you feel like the time that you are having together is actually quality? I think there's a time and a place for these things, but actually it's just a respectful thing. Do you really like talking to people when they're not looking at you? When they're not paying attention to you, when they're typing away on things? How about now in this current lockdown situation, if people are sharing videos, which is a whole other conversation. What if they're sharing a video and they're tapping away on their computer? They're not even looking at the screen. Does that really feel like they've engaged? Does it feel like it's a quality amount of time that you're spending together? Moving on to quality conversations. So when we're talking with each other, is it a quality conversation? Is it a quality interaction? Are we talking about sharing experiences? Do we share our thoughts and our feelings? And is it uninterrupted time? I wrote a blog recently where I mentioned the importance that I felt as a leader of having availability and having time that I make for my team. And there's nothing worse than you going over to talk to somebody and they're not really giving you all their attention. It's much the same as the last point, focused attention, but again, this is about giving respect and how much respect we want to receive as well. So how engaged are you when you're having your conversations with your team? Now, I think we all know how to talk, so learning to talk seems like a bit of a silly thing to talk about. But as we see from these lovely people from Greatest Showman, sometimes revealing a bit about yourself is actually more important than anything else. I recently started a new job and it's been remote every single day apart from my very first day. Do you know how hard it is for an extrovert like myself to be able to get to know people, the people that I'm working with every single day? Finding something that you have in common with somebody is like a magical moment sometimes. And it helps you connect, it helps you have a little bit more in common, helps you to interact with each other so much more. And also it can actually lead to having a more respectful time with each other. I worked with a colleague who was incredibly frustrated when people kept on referencing how much younger they were than everybody else. They felt like it was quite demeaning. They felt like it kind of immediately put them out of place with everybody else. Like, you wouldn't know you were born 12 years younger than me, or any of those sorts of things. And actually, knowing that meant that when those things went on, I could help diffuse that situation. I could pull it back and just go, we don't need to talk about that. But also they were aware of things that used to really annoy me. Nobody's perfect, everyone gets annoyed by things. But if you understand how people actually see the world, what makes them tick, then you're going to have a better way of interacting with each other. As an example, when I was a games tester, sort of 14 years ago, I was in a team where a couple of guys were having some wonderful banter, as games testers always do. And they started making a lot of jokes about priests and how they were all little kiddie fiddlers, bad people, paedophiles and stuff. Well, guess what? My dad's a vicar. I don't see him like that. Nobody does, and nobody should. And yet, the conversations they were having directly in my context were wholly inappropriate, and they were massively offensive to me. But they hadn't ever taken the time to talk to me. This was my team lead and the senior in my team. They didn't have the time to talk to me. And maybe that's a little bit on me for not sharing with them my background, who I am, who my dad is, why what they're saying was offensive. I never said anything. I sat there brooding, and to this day, I still have bad feelings towards those guys. And if I ever had the chance to work with them, I don't think I would want to. But they didn't know. So we need to take the time to share ourselves and share who we are, what makes us tick, what grinds our gears. Next point is really important, especially if you're someone that has friends that like to vent, or if you're someone that likes to vent. Dead Seas and Babbling Brooks. These are people who are very one way. So the Dead Sea is a massive body of water where the water goes and it doesn't leave. A babbling brook is so shallow because the water just flows right through it the whole time. And it's a metaphor for people who only ever take in but don't give back, or people that only ever give but never take. So in the context of our work, it might be someone that takes on all the work. It's all on their shoulders. They don't let other people take things on. They volunteer for everything. They can't delegate work. They can't share their work. They haven't got time to document it or train others or share those sorts of things because they've just kept everything in themselves. And a babbling brook can be quite the opposite way. All you do is you complain or you're asking for help all the time. And it's not wrong to ask for help. This is kind of the example of the two ends of the spectrum. If you're either one of those, you're probably going to burn out at some point. I know as a new starter in my job now, I probably feel quite a lot like a babbling brook because I don't understand everything that's going on. I am asking a lot of questions and I'm trying to find my way. But I know a lot of examples of people that have been a Dead Sea where they've had so much on them, that so much is dependent on them. I think people sometimes call them rock stars or whatever, or superstars in the workplace. But, burnout's a real thing and we need to be really careful for those people and care for them. So quality activities. This is stuff that we do together. Being together, doing things together, sharing, pairing, mobbing, things that we enjoy both with our work, but also other things. I mean, it might be you have lunchtime games, maybe you play pool at the workplace or darts. I mean, we can't do that now. Maybe in other ways you could do online games. You could have quizzes, you could have a hangout chat or whatever. It can provide a positive memory bank of things that help you to engage and spend time together. Here's an example of my old team doing their very first ever mob session. That was a good experience. Here was my old team dressing really appropriately for the workplace. And here we are just having a good time. These are happy memories that we shared together. So, receiving gifts. Who's ever had a good Secret Santa present? Hey, one year I got some edible underwear. It was great. So, a reminder of love. This picture here depicts the story of Home Alone 2, Lost in New York, where the shopkeeper gives Kevin, the main protagonist, the option to take any gift from the store because he helped foil the robbers. And Kevin asks the store owner, what's the best toy or the best thing that I can take? And he's given these two doves because he says there can be two doves, one for yourself and one for somebody else. And every time you look at it, that can be a reminder of that connection and that love between you. A wedding ring is an example of those sorts of things. But in our context, as testers in our workplace, perhaps it's somebody always runs a channel like a jokes channel or a pun channel. Somebody seems to go that extra mile to do little things. In my old workplace, we had someone that out of hours, they came in and they built an entire Santa's grotto and they wrapped it up in a wrapping paper so that when we had a Secret Santa in the workplace, there was this lovely thing that had been built. They used up their own time. They just did it because they loved the people that they worked with and they wanted to show that. It can be any of those sorts of things. I'm sure we can all think of someone that has just done that little something extra in the workplace, or they've just been someone, say, they might leave a little treat at your desk if you're feeling down, those sorts of things. Best investment, here we're talking about how you spend your time, your resources, your skills. How are you perceived in the workplace? Are you somebody that might be showing themselves to be open to give their time, or are you always blocked off? Are you able to be someone that can help share your time with people? You actually take the time to learn with them, to listen to their ideas, be a sounding board. How you spend your time and your resource, your skills, really gives people an idea of who you might be as a leader. Because as we all know, a job title doesn't necessarily mean that you are a leader. I believe that as testers, we're all called to be leaders and set an example for quality. So are we actually being selfish with ourselves? Are we storing these things for ourselves, or are we sharing them? And the gift of self. Being present with people, not just fulfilling obligations, not just turning up to a meeting and not contributing. Yeah, if someone asks you for feedback, do you take the time to give them that feedback? If someone needs a chat, do you make yourself available to chat with them? Or are you just going through the motions? Now, before I move on, I should state that there is something that we'll be doing together later. And maybe I didn't make this completely clear at the beginning, but the point here with love languages is that there will be some of these things that you will relate to more than others. There'll be some things that you would actually see yourself and thinking, that is something that I appreciate the most. If someone did that for me, I would appreciate that so much. But also there will be stuff that you absolutely wouldn't appreciate. And the key with all of these different love languages is having an understanding not only for how you perceive things, and understanding how you perceive those things is really important, because you should be able to understand that when you talk with your team about this. But also it's taking the time to learn how your team perceive these things, because how we interact with each other, how we perceive these things is really important, because we are all individuals, which means that giving someone a shout out where everyone just gives a huge round of applause for them publicly, that could be a wonderful thing for someone in your team, but somebody else might feel like they want the earth to swallow them up. And so this is really the context in which we need to understand which love languages are important to us. So then we have acts of service. I think we've all talked a lot about servant leadership in the past. Shay's on the call here, and he certainly is an advocate for these sorts of things. But when we talk about servant leadership, we mean the leaders as people who they sacrifice the work that they're doing for themselves to enable, to empower their team, their people, to do a better job, so that they aren't blocked, so that they aren't stuck. But they aren't people that should be taken advantage of. If you have someone in your team that, as an act of service, they want to help empower everyone else to do those things, we shouldn't just take that for advantage. We should celebrate that, but we should find out how they appreciate, being recognized for those things. So working out what everybody wants and what they need to feel appreciated, and how other people show that, is really important. Now, this is the last bit, which is a bit tricky when we're talking lockdown time, but it is important when we are talking about physical touch that we're not talking about not safe for work touch. We want to talk about safe for work touch. When I gave this talk at our internal conference last year, I had HR in the talk. I'm not going to lie. Gave them a special nod, saying I was being appropriate. So when we talk about physical touch, as far as the workplace, there are people, some of them are extroverts, some of them introverts, but there are people that yearn for that interaction physically with other people. And that doesn't just mean a good old cuddle, but it might do. Understanding what is not only appropriate, but also what people need is really important. Now, for me, I'm a high five guy, but also I don't mind a fist bump or even shooting the guns. In this time, I'm struggling. Life in lockdown is difficult because I don't have that interaction with people. And where we have team members who have this love language, are we looking out for them? Are we checking in on them? Even if they've got family at home who are people that they can hug, how are they being able to share their need for those sorts of interactions in the workplace when they can't physically interact with their team? For me, being sent virtual hugs is quite nice. Shooting the guns has been done on Twitter, and I really appreciate that. That's a really good thing, but it's also really important to consider those people. I did on Twitter the other day shout out about this, and I shouted out as an extrovert asking for these things. But you know what? A friend of mine who's an introvert said introverts like hugs too. And his wife then replied and said, extroverts don't always want a hug either. And it's really true to consider. There isn't a blanket way of talking about people in these things. Even if your love language was physical touch, that doesn't mean that you want to cuddle. That's why we need these conversations. So Mario's helping us think about this. So the next bit that we're going to do is a little bit different. I'm not going to apologise for it because I'm a little bit different. What I've got for you, and I hope this works because I didn't ask Billy if I could do it, is I've got a link to a sheet. And I'm going to share it in the chat if this works. So what I want you to do is, if I can find where the chat window has gone, I'm going to add this in the chat. Hey, but I can't find the chat window. Wait a second. There we go. Ever the professional. Right, in the chat. Here we go. Please have a look at that document. It should be visible to you. In there, it's a spreadsheet because everyone loves a good spreadsheet. And on that, there are hopefully some questions. And each question has 2 answers to give. And I want you just to mark down yourselves. So maybe just on a bit of paper or whatever you've got with you to work out which of those apply to you. It's a little bit sort of convoluted, but it's a way of starting a conversation. Hamad, did you not hear me explain what this was? It's a quiz type thing for everyone to interact with. I want everyone to follow that link to, on a bit of paper, write down their answers, and then I want everyone to tally up where they're at. Generally, there will be a couple of letters that will be higher for you than for every other one. When I took this, there were 3 to show that we are all a bit anomalous, but it's important for the conversations that we take a look at this. So please take the time to do it. Has everyone been able to get it? It's 1 answer per question. So if it's like say there's 2 questions, you just pick the one that's the highest number, the one applies to you most. So say there's question number 1, I'll open it up. Here we go. You can't see this, but anyway, it says Pico on it, but no, it doesn't. Does it say workplace? I don't know. So say question 1, my input is sought in an area of work in which I have an interest, or someone fist bumps me. Whichever one appeals to you most, just put that letter down, and then we'll tally that up at the end. Does that make sense? It's all very strange when there's no feedback, let me tell you. It's very quiet. I hope everyone's doing it and can access it, and I haven't just revealed something really weird from my Google Drive account.
No, it's working.
Thanks, Russell. I should have had some interlude music. I'm sorry. I won't choose Spice Girls. I think sing. No, you don't want to hear me singing. It's even less pleasant than hearing me talk. Yeah. Well, just let me know how you're getting on. Update my slides. There we go. What I would do is I would actively encourage you, once you've done this and we've had a bit of a conversation about it, is to consider whether or not it's worth you doing this with your team, talking through with them. Because I imagine most teams are a bit dysfunctional. I know families are dysfunctional. When Gary Chapman wrote this, he did it for marriage counselling, but he's written further iterations of the book for those raising children, those who are single, those who are teenagers. There's a whole bunch of different areas in which talking about love languages can apply. How are we getting on? Can people give me a thumbs up or something on their thumbnail to tell me how we're getting on, or not? Just oh hey Bruce, this is fun. It's like we're being interactive, but I don't know what anyone's doing, and you can all just see me.
I'm staring at the screen, trying to do them. I've made a tally chart. I've written A to E on a piece of paper, and I'm tallying
Awesome.
them.
That is a fine way to do it. Thank you. Yeah. So I'll update my slide as well, because we've got the 5 love languages. So once we're down with those, it's probably worth seeing where you fit with those things. When I printed these out, when I did it as a workshop, I had to apologise to everyone for using the smallest font possible. But hopefully if you've got it on your own screen, you'll actually be able to make it work better. I did contemplate using something like Slido, or even like a Google form for people to fill out so they didn't have to write it down. If anyone's got better ideas of how to make this more interactive so I don't just sit here looking at a blank screen, that would be really appreciated as well. Oh, look, there's Bruce. No more blank screen for me. Thanks, Bruce. Oh, and Simon as well. Hi. All right. So if you look back at the slides, you should be able to see which love languages we hopefully will have shown up. I would say that there are other quizzes. I made this version of this quiz for a workplace, and I don't anticipate that if you did the one for relationships, I can provide the links to the relationship quizzes as well. They're not mine, but they're on Gary Chapman's own Love Languages website. If you feel like it would be something you might like to do actually with loved ones, with family, or any of those sorts of things, you may well find that your love languages that you have in the workplace are actually quite different to the love languages that you have at home and work, being quite different to each other. And that's okay. When I did this the first time, I actually gave everyone a relationship one and a work one, and some people got really confused about which, because some people really want a cuddle from their loved ones, but not from their colleagues, and that's probably all right. You know, I love a good hug. I think I answered somebody's Twitter saying what was the first thing they were going to do when lockdown was down, and I said I was probably going to go on a hugging spree. So watch out, Leicestershire. But how are we doing? Has everyone finished? You have a 3-way tie. Oh, Bruce, you're like me. So unfortunate.
What letters are your 3-way tie?
My 3-way tie. It was quality time, B, words of affirmation, A, and acts of service, D.
Oh, I've got A, B, and E. D and C just were non-existent.
See, for me, physical touch is important. Like I said, shooting those guns, super important. Exactly. But
yeah, I'm the same as Bruce. There
you go. But the thing is, though, what you'll find interesting, which is what I'm hoping that we'll get to do afterwards, is everyone ready to move on to the next bit? If we just carry on quickly. What I want to do is, when we talk about A, words of affirmation as an example, quite a lot of people like a few words of affirmation in their lives, but I'm pretty sure we don't all have the same words of affirmation that we find useful. So if I zoom my talk back massively to words of affirmation, here we go. We have encouraging words, kind words, and humble words. It's the encouraging words that I'm pretty sure we will have differences in. By a show of thumbs up on your little abilities on this wonderful application that is Zoom, or even just a real thumbs up if you actually have your video on. Who here actually likes a public shout out in front of hundreds of people? Does everyone like that? Would that make you feel super uncomfortable? I'm loving the interactivity. Thank you, Billy. The point is, that we might all want to hear good information, but it might just be a shout out in an email. It might be someone having a quiet word to you where they say, "Do you know what? I really appreciate the work that you've been doing," or "You are the person that I'm going to send people to talk to on this particular subject matter because I think you're excellent at it," rather than in a town hall meeting where somebody goes, "Huge shout out to this person." Just as an example. So if we shoot over to who had quality time? B. Bit of yeah. Is there anyone who isn't annoyed by people chucking their phone in front of their faces whilst they're talking to you? How about, have you ever spoken to somebody with your phone or your laptop, looking at them or looking at the screen? What are you doing?
That's quite common in meetings where you have people working on laptops.
Yeah.
Listening in and then asking the same question repeatedly.
Yeah, and that's the point, because some people probably think it's super all right. Oh, maybe they're really busy and really important, but actually if it feels hugely disrespectful to you and they don't know that.
Yeah.
So that's an example. Are there any people that are pretty good at having a good old bitch a lot without any particular output or consequence? They just complain about stuff all the time? Yeah. But how about people who only care about solutions? Not really interested in the problem if you haven't got a solution, right? Or do you work with people like that? One of the first things my old boss told me was that I'm not really concerned with the problem, just give me a solution. I understood what he meant, but for me, I was like, I need to talk to somebody appropriate about the problems that I've got. So it's quite difficult to have those sorts of bits. It's a last little whistle stop for you here. I apologise. So, what about gifts? Did anyone actually have gifts, see, as one of their main love languages? It's very quiet.
No.
But also, would anyone feel super uncomfortable if they were just given a gift by someone at work? Like, say someone's bought you like a £20 t-shirt that they think, oh, that's so funny about you. Do you then feel an obligation to reciprocate even though that's not really your thing? Has that happened?
Yeah.
Right. And this is the point. We don't want to make people uncomfortable if we're giving them a gift. Have you ever had it where you've had someone that really enjoys talking with you and they just sort of hang around at your desk a little bit too long? Or that you've kind of maybe hung around at their desk too long and they've sort of in the end just kind of got their headphones and just and moved on. You know, this kind of interaction and understanding of each other is so important. Here we go. Servant leaders. I see Shay's on the screen sharing his camera. It's a beautiful thing. Shay, servant leaders. Have you ever felt like any servant leaders ever taken advantage of? I didn't say that very well. But do you see people who think of you as you're someone that can solve stuff, so I'm just going to leave it to you? Yeah.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel?
Quite proud and competent that somebody trusts me to do something they've asked independently and get it done in the way they require it.
Have you ever felt like someone's taken advantage of that situation?
I think so, yes, when it's evident that the person wants you to do something for them, but they obviously haven't thought of a solution themselves. So just come and said, you know, can you tie my shoelace? And you say, well, haven't you tried yourself first? You know.
Yeah. Man, I had my dad used to be a French and German teacher before he taught, before he became a vicar, and I used to come with my French homework and basically go, "Hey, Dad, how do I do this?" And he would always enable me to do the job myself. So frustrating, but it helped me learn to do things myself. I couldn't take advantage of the fact that he was a teacher because he wouldn't answer my questions for me. But again, these things are important. He knew what he was doing. Are there any people that desperately missing hugs in the world and high fives, physical interactions in the workplace?
Other than you, Chris?
Yeah, well, desperately. My new colleagues don't even know about the shooting the guns things or the high fives and the fist bumps all over the shop. But I miss it, and it's going to be hard, and not having that initial interaction with each other, it's difficult because I'm quite a sort of physically animated person anyway, and my written word kind of expresses the way I talk, which isn't to everyone's cup of tea. Maybe if they saw me and gave me a bit of the guns, maybe that would be different. I don't know. But basically, this is such an important topic, and I really hope that you were able to engage in it just a little bit. It only really works if we talk about it, if we understand ourselves, how we feel about things, how we perceive people being nice or not nice to us, and also how they perceive that world, because we don't all see the world in the same way. And I found this tool really useful to start those conversations, to have a bit of an understanding of the people I work with. I did it with my old test team. I hope to do it with my new test team. But I would really encourage you to talk about this more. If anyone does want to reach out, by all means, chat to me. My contact details are on the screen, as is the new podcast adventure that some of us have started. You're very welcome to download and listen to that as well. But otherwise, that is it. And I'm open to questions now or anything really. Billy, I don't know how you want to play this.
Yeah, it's whatever people really want. If they want to ask questions now, then great. Or if they just want to sort of tweet you, they can do that as well. Whatever the guys want.
Yeah, have at it.
Yeah, I had a question.
Cool.
So I haven't done loads of the love languages things before, but when I was doing some relationship-y things back in the day, I remembered something I saw written down about having different love languages in terms of what makes you feel good to give as well as what you feel good to receive. And you've talked a lot about what we like as colleagues, the working world, to get from the people around us. But I just wondered if you had any thoughts in terms of what value there is to knowing what love languages we like to do, those things we like to do for others, if you get what I mean.
Well, if you're someone that likes to give gifts as well, being considerate about how you give those gifts is really important, because you still have to express your appreciation for other people, right? If you don't, they won't know. And you especially if you've got like a gift. My sister, when we talked about maybe changing the way we did Christmas gifts, because there's way too many kids and stuff these days, she said, we can all do it so only the adults all get one present, but I'm still going to buy one for everybody because I still want to show that I love you all and do those things, and that I'm still going to do that. And this is true of like physical gifts and stuff, but just doing nice things for people, if you know that they understand that you're doing it because you appreciate them, but not just because, we don't want to make people uncomfortable, I guess, is that sort of thing. But there are nice things we can do for people, say going down and making a cup of tea for somebody if they want to. It might be, someone's running low on stationery, you can hook them up with those things, or it could be anything really. I guess I haven't really answered your question, but I rambled quite impressively. Do you want to do a funnel answering of the to try and go a bit deeper into that, or was that satisfactorily vague for you?
It wasn't even a question, was it? It's just like do you have thoughts on this thing?
I have so many thoughts on all of these different things. It's such a broad topic. The book I would recommend, even the original and best, this Love Languages book, I would recommend to you. But again, this is talking about relationships, as far as this is like married relationships type stuff. But like I said, he's done a whole breadth of these things. But we're testers. We can see things that inspire us from other walks of life that we can apply to the workplace, which is what inspired me to do this talk in the first place. And I have found it really useful to apply some of those things in my workplace with my colleagues. I'm finding it incredibly hard right now because I new colleagues and they don't know me and stuff. But it's getting to know people is so important. Understanding what makes people tick is so important. Understanding that somebody who wears the headphones all the time because they're in flow and they don't want to be interrupted is so important. But they also need to know that if I need to get hold of them, then I need to find a way that isn't going to piss them off, so I can just talk to them. So might be a conversation where everyone wears headphones and you're like an extra who needs to chat to people, or you just need help with something and you don't feel like you can interrupt them. It might be as simple as saying, am I allowed to use, say, our chat tool just to ping you directly if I desperately need your help now? How are we going to set those boundaries? Does an email work? Does a Slack work? Finding those boundaries means that we can be comfortable with each other and actually work within our own love languages to appreciate each other, but also in a way that's more efficient and effective, so people aren't feeling left out. We are still being inclusive whilst still being able to work the way that we work best. That's a thing. Does that sound a bit too preachy, life coachy? Anything else?
Very vague question for you, Chris.
Love it.
What has this sort of approach led you to adapt when dealing with sort of your colleagues? So what have you physically changed because of it, if that makes sense?
Okay, well, I was already quite aware that hugging people, especially engineers, wasn't particularly appropriate most of the time unless they were super huggy type people. I mean, I had a colleague that had a I'm a hugger t-shirt, so, that was kind of like, okay, we can look at each other across the office and like, we can hug, this is cool. But what it has made me do, it's made me think more about the people. It's more the things that people get pissed off about they don't talk about, because pretty much everyone you've ever worked with is pissed off about something all of the time. And what that's actually enabled me to do is it's broaching that subject appropriately, finding out why is it someone's annoyed if they're open to sharing those things, but if not, that's cool as well. But just knowing something that is seen as inappropriate by somebody or disrespectful, you can see when people are annoyed. I've had it in group chats or video chats where you can see someone is talking over somebody or stuff, and you can just see that face of that person in the corner just breathing like that or whatever. Maybe they've muted their microphone so you can't hear it. But what it's kind of it's made me look for those sort of tells, those signs that something's not quite right. And I can't fix everything myself, which is a really good thing for the world, because that wouldn't be good if I could fix everything. But what it's done is it's made me more aware of those things, but also what is it that I do that is quite annoying? Because I had a habit of always bringing my experiences into conversations, and sometimes that's good. sometimes that's what people want, but sometimes people just want to talk to you and help you to see their point of view without you going, oh yeah, that happened in my workplace too. Yeah, we did it like this. Because that feels instantly dismissive and disrespectful. And that definitely changed the way I worked with my colleagues.
Cool, thank you.
No worries. Any more for any more?
There's a question on the chat channel, I think, which is about the slides. I don't know if you're going to make them available or anything, Chris.
I will make them a little bit tidier, and then I will. I guess that the meetup stays open for a while, doesn't it, Billy? So we can just chuck it into there.
Yeah, we'll share the slides, and I've also recorded this session. So over the next week, we'll share that recording too on
Awesome.
These Recruitment's YouTube page.
Awesome. So yes, in time, I'll just make them a bit tidier. There's a there's a lot that I didn't really use.
Hi, Chris. Hi, everyone. Just want to say thank you for actually choosing this the book and bringing it into the context of testing. I've read the book but I've never. I mean, I've read the book and I've applied it into my own personal life, but I've never really viewed it in the way that you have. What is interesting is actually the way that you've also not just talked about it from the positive side, but you've hinted the negatives, which for me personally, bringing it into work unknowingly, bringing some of these the 5 love languages into work unknowingly, I've kind of seen how people can push back, and not really appreciate all the good that you're trying to do by, for example, the headphone people, you want to reach out to them and they're just not seeing it that way, because they just see you as, oh, okay, what are you still doing around my desk? That sort of thing. So there is the give and take of it from both sides. It's challenging, it's interesting, but I think that in the testing world, that perhaps if we start to bring these values into the workplace, perhaps we can, change mindsets, and make the workplace a better place. And also bearing in mind that people are from different professional backgrounds originally before they go into testing. Also, people are from different cultural backgrounds, Yeah. I predominantly work as a defect manager, and I talk to a lot of people. In the course of the day, I meet with a lot of people, and you just see how people are, and I am constantly thinking, how can I make this better? How can I make the workplace, enjoyable? How can I make the entire life cycle easier with less pressure, even though we know we're in deep shit, So it's really good that I'm actually appreciative that I'm not the only one thinking in this way, and it's more encouraging for me that when I do go back into work, that I can emphasize on these great quality values. Thank you.
That's the thing with it. It's not only about showing appreciation; it's about doing it appropriately and what's appropriate for the context in which you're working.
Absolutely.
And I found, I've revisited this in my own personal relationship at home, and that has changed as we've had children, for example. But in the workplace, it's hugely different. Like if you've got new characters coming, going all the time, you're dealing with different people. You can't approach everything in the way that you did it before. It's not just a copy and paste thing, and it's an ongoing journey that will change. And bringing change is something that is often resisted in the workplace. And so finding the right context, the right pitch for those things is really important as well. And sometimes it's a collaborative thing. Well, actually, it should always be a collaborative thing, but depends who you're working with. But yeah, the conversation should always remain open, and I'm really, really open to talking more about this with people and their adventures, their stories, as they sort of apply this or any other heuristic for communication into their workplace. So thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. I think we are maybe all done for questions, but yeah, if anyone's got any more questions, please feel free to shout out now, or contact Chris directly. Want to give a huge shout out to Chris for that brilliant talk. Really enjoyed that one, and hope everyone enjoyed it as well. So I guess thanks for coming along to Quality Advocates. Thanks for giving the talk, Chris, and everyone stay safe, and hopefully see you at the next one.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you. It was very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.